I experienced something at the age of 9 when a friend in the playground invited me to meet this lady called Mrs. Robb. She was a widow. She lived in a suburb of Liverpool in a place called Finch Lane. She had a round circular oak table, and then in the alcove there was a bookcase with big Bibles on it. I'd never seen a Bible before then. She'd get down on her knees and we'd pray. She'd pray what seemed to me at an early age long prayers, interspersed with Amen, and then she'd get up again and start again. She used to put what we call a doily, which is a lace mat. When you were putting out cakes on the stand, you'd put this doily underneath, you know. A thinking cap, she called it. So that was my first experience of prayer. One day, getting ready to go out, and she couldn't find her keys. And she used to call the devil. She had a nickname for the devil. She called him Old Nick. And she'd say, "Old Nick is hiding the keys from me." So we'd get down on our knees and she'd put this doily on her head, and then she'd ask the Lord to lead her to the keys. And immediately we finished praying, she'd get up and go straight to where the keys were. That has always stuck in my mind. I would say that Mrs. Robb, number one, she was a widow. Number two, she had 4 sons. She lost 3 of them in the war, and she lost the 4th son in peacetime, murdered. And yet, here was a woman that prayed. Because if you were to ask her the question, does prayer really work? Well, it wasn't something that she scrutinized, it's something that she did. It was a life for her to pray. And I think in some ways, God gave her back her children, because I've met people also who have been changed and influenced by Mrs. Robb as a child. She prayed for the city, she prayed for souls. She prayed for me. She prayed for my brother, she laid hands on us. I remember one time going home, she put her hands on my head and she asked the Lord to put us into the ministry and to keep us from drink. You know, one time my dad was passing the window, because it was one of those you could look out on the sidewalk in front of the house. My dad would walk from the betting shop with the paper under his hand and a ciggy in his mouth. She prayed for him, for God to save him, and 30, 40 years later, I had the privilege of leading my dad to the Lord. I think there are seasons as well. I don't think your prayers are always answered right away. Sometimes they're answered before you even ask, before you even verbalize them. Other times it's 10, 20, 30 years before that prayer is answered. Sometimes the prayer isn't answered, or the prayer is a no. You know, 20 years ago I was praying for a certain thing, and now, 20 years later, I'm glad it wasn't answered the way I wanted it to be answered. It wasn't what Mrs. Robb taught me about prayer. I think again it's that old saying, it's caught rather than taught. In other words, it's what I experienced there in that room that has stayed with me all my life and given me a hunger to develop there. I've had my ups and downs. I've had seasons where it's dry. I think it's developing, it's a lifestyle. It's a practice. It's something that you're always learning. It's something that you're always developing. You're going from one level of glory to another.